exciting. I feel like it's something where every time it comes around to it, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna nail it this time. I'm gonna come up with the best name. And then I like sit down, I put pen to paper and I'm like, oh, I can't think of any. Hello, how is everyone? Don't know why I'm asking that. It's not like you can answer and I can hear you. I hope everyone's well. Today I'm going to be talking about different methods and different strategies that you can put into place in order to find a name for your business. Let's get to it. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Jade. I own two businesses. Is it two? Yeah, I own two businesses. A swimwear boutique, a bag boutique, and then I also have an Instagram channel which I monetize. This whole channel is about side hustles, starting businesses. If that's of interest to you, please subscribe, help me out. I'm a new YouTuber, every subscriber counts. So how I'm gonna format this video is, I'm gonna start by talking about the different kinds of business names that exist. I'm going to talk about a strategy for you to help you guys figure out what your business name should be. I'm going to talk about things you should avoid, things you should have checked for, and then I'm going to tell you a very quick story about how I came up with my perfect brand name and then I had to change it, which was a nightmare, but I'm going to tell you about it anyway. First thing what I want to talk about then is the different types of names, because there are a lot and I don't think people are always aware of it, and sometimes just going through the types of names really help formulate the strategy that you want to put into place when you're trying to pick your business name, because it's hard. It's exciting. I feel like it's something where every time it comes around to it, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna nail it this time. I'm gonna come up with the best name. And then I like sit down, I put pen to paper and I'm like, oh, I can't think of any. And sometimes it takes a really long time. So yeah, it's a difficult process. So I'm here to help. So let's get going with the different types of business names. The first type of business name I'm going to talk about is an eponymous business name. I don't know if I've said that right. It's one of those words which I've only ever written down and never said out loud. So it could be pronounced wrong, but eponymous, I'm going to run with it. Names are basically names which are named after a person. So example, Disney, obviously that was named after someone called Walt Disney. So many different brands have done it. It's a really simple and effective way to name a company without, having to stress yourself out too much. And also kind of knowing that you're probably always going to like it, unless you're going to change your name, which I don't think happens very often. It's a pretty safe bet. The next one, descriptive. So descriptive names are basically names which are describing their service. So example of this is American Airlines. They're an airline, they fly to America. It's pretty on the nose, simple and effective. So next one, acronyms. So companies like KFC, IBM, which stands for International Business Machines, tons of different examples, but that's another really kind of effective strategy. And then the next one, which I want to talk about, is suggestive. So suggestive is basically a new or existing word which suggests what the business does. So example of this is Pinterest. You can kind of say that one of my brands is an example of this, actually, Lilo. That's out of all my brands, that's my favorite name. How I came up with Lilo is I was trying to think of words which are suggestive or which have like connotations to swimming and going on holiday, because Lilo is all about is an online swimwear boutique. So I was trying to think of names which relate to swimming and going on holiday, which is why I came up with Lilo. So like those Lilos that you go on in the sea, not me because I'm scared of the sea, but what people go on in the sea. That's how I came up with Lilo. That's a good example of a suggestive name, as well as companies like Pinterest. Non-English. This is quite a common one as well. So basically just picking a word, finding out what it translates to in a different language and then running with that. It's quite nice, this method, because sometimes it could be quite unique and it could be really pleasant sounding words. The one thing I'm really cautious of is, first of all, making sure that you've got your translation correct, because that could be awkward. But as an English speaking person, and I'm sure there's other people who can relate to this, sometimes I've been to other countries and I've seen like shops which have been named something which they've taken this strategy and thought, so say I'm in Spain, they've thought, okay, I'm gonna pick a non-Spanish word, and then they've picked an English word, but it just doesn't really work. Like, you go past stores and it's like fashionable, and you're like, oh, it's not the best word to use, but I guess in another language it probably sounds really cool. But anyway, so abstract. So that's just using like phonetics to find a new English sounding word. I like abstract names. Great example of abstract name is like Rolex, for example. I feel like when you get a good abstract name, it is incredibly powerful because it's almost like it becomes part of the English dictionary because it sounds like it could be, and you've made such a great brand out of it that people almost consider it to be, like Rolex. I think it really works, but they're also really difficult to come up with. Last one I want to talk about is composite. So that's basically when you take part of a word and then another part of a word and then you just merge them together. Example, Facebook. There's loads of examples like that. Sometimes people do it with names, like if there's two of you who've started out your company, it's like taking half of one name and half of the other name and like merging it together. You know, like what people do with couples. It's like that, but for business. But that's another really good route as well. So those are all of the different types of business names, which I'm hoping just by going through them has sparked something in your mind where you thought, oh, maybe this. Or maybe I'll try this type of name. But if it hasn't, don't worry. There's some strategies you can do and some tactics which could help like knock that business name out of your brain. Because it's in there somewhere. We've just got to dig deep and find it. So one of the things that I do for everything is mind map. So I honestly, mind map, like this notebook, mind map. This notebook is literally just mind maps. I do it for every video. I do it for everything. So create a mind map and start thinking about things like, all right, what is your brand? What's the brand vibe you want to go through? What's the look and feel? What do you want people to feel and think when they see your brand or when they hear your brand name? Then think about the products that you're selling. What's your niche? What type of product is it? You know, can there be a descriptive word in there? Start mapping that out and honestly just start writing. There's never too much that you can do. Just start writing, and then when you're done, look at your page and start to think if there are links anywhere. Like, for example, it's what I've done for Lilo. I sat down, I mind mapped, I thought of a bunch of different things which were relation to swimwear, being on a holiday. I thought of cool words that I just generally like. I even had a section where I was translating some of the words that I liked or some of the words which are related to swimwear into different languages. I was researching it just to see if any of those sounded right. Keep on going back to it. Eventually, one or two of those words or names that you've come up with will start to stick with you and you'll think, okay, maybe this is the one that I should be exploring. Another really good tip, which might help you, especially if you've landed on a name which you think, oh, there might be some other business names out there. You know, always check that, by the way. Go on sites like GoDaddy to check your domain's available. Go on, in England, go on .gov to check that your business name's available. There's other sites that you need to use depending on where you are. You know, make sure that your name's available on Instagram, all that kind of stuff. Double check all of that when you get to the stage where you think you found your name. If you find that your name is actually, someone's already thought of it, someone's already using it, or, you know, you feel like it's not quite there yet, what you can do is think about how you spell the word. So an example, again, I'm going to use Lilo because that's just my favorite brand name of all of my ones. Obviously, when I was going through this process and I thought, oh, Lilo, I like that word. It's easy to remember. It has a relation to what I'm selling. I'm going to go with Lilo. But then when I thought about it, when I wrote it out, I was like, oh, I like it, but it's just missing something. And then I thought, oh wait, I can change the spelling of it, which is such a good tactic as well. So Lilo, the traditional Lilo, what you buy, is spelled Lilo. I spell my brand Lylo because I feel like it makes it a bit more unique, and also it helps it differentiate itself from actually purchasing Lilos. I don't want people to actually think that I'm selling Lilos because I'm not. So it's a good way to differentiate yourself. Another thing that I do for all of my businesses is I've got London at the end. So my bag boutique, Raya London, my swimwear boutique, Lilo London. The reason why I put London on the end is because that is the part of the name which is really individual to me. I'm obviously from London, as you can probably tell from my accent. I've lived in London my whole life, with the exception of university, and it is such a big part of me, my brand identity, and who I am. Okay, things to avoid. Please do not pick a name which is really hard to pronounce or really difficult to spell. Also, don't pick a name that's super, super long. All of these things are going to make it incredibly difficult for someone to find your website or find you on Instagram. They might have seen your ad at some point on Instagram and thought, oh, that's nice, but they didn't save it, and they thought, I'll remember it. I'll search it when it comes, you know, to payday and I've got money to buy the product. Payday comes around and they can't find you because your words or your brand name is, you know, 15 characters long and no one can remember how to spell it. So therefore you've lost the sale. Make sure it's snappy and really easy to remember. Another thing, and you know, it seems obvious, but it's not, make sure it's not offensive. And this is especially important when you're picking a name from a different language that you're not familiar with. You really need to do your research to make sure that you're using the right word. Such a good example, Kim Kardashian, big time celebrity, her company Kimono. Well, it's called Skims, but it was at one point it was called Kimono. And I don't know if you remember or if you saw, it had huge backlash because people thought it was cultural appropriation. What I find baffling about that entire situation is you are a big time celebrity with a huge PR team and not one person thought to tell you like, by the way, Kim, I don't think Kimono is the best name. You might annoy some people. How did no one think that? I get it if you're a one-man band, but you're like a big time celebrity. Anyway, it's a good example of how this mistake is made all the time. So just make sure you've done your research because the last thing you want to do is offend someone with your business or in general. In terms of things you want to check, I spoke about this briefly before. You want to check that your brand name is available on Companies House in the UK or wherever you are, your different social media sites that you're going to want to have, and on your domains as well. You also want to check that no one else has a name which is similar to you. So you might check all of these places and be like, oh, this is fine. Like, no one's got the exact same name as you, but if you've got another brand which is similar, it can still cause issues. Story time. Raya used to be called Mimi. It was called Mimi after my sister. My sister's called Monica. Her nickname is Mimi. So I called it Mimi and I loved that name. Obviously love my sister loads, but her name's great. I've always thought her name was great and it worked so well branding. It was really symmetrical. It just worked. Like I loved it. Anyway, there's another brand, like a really, really amazing brand called Mimi. It wasn't exactly the same, so I didn't notice it when I first was doing all my checks. It spells it M-I-M-I-I, whereas I was spelling mine M-I-M-I. And they kind of burst on the scene and had huge marketing spend. I was seeing their marketing everywhere and just blew up. And as they were getting bigger, I was starting to get customers emailing me like, hi, I want a return address. And obviously that was a bag boutique. So clearly they were looking for the wrong company. And I was just getting loads of issues like that. And I just thought, Joe, what, it's not worth it. It's causing too much confusion. I need to change my name, which is why I ended up changing it to Raya. But it's just a good example of, first of all, the fact that if you don't like your name, you can change it at some point. It's a bit of a pain, but you can change it. But also, just be careful when you're picking a name. And even if you think, oh, it's not exactly the same as mine, but it's similar and you're in the similar categories, you know, bag and clothing, you're in a similar category, it's going to cause you issues in the long run. Just really think carefully about whether or not it's worth it. That's all my tips. I hope that was useful. I'm actually in the process of creating these packs, which are basically going to cover everything you need to know to get started and start your online store, your business, everything you need to know from a finance and marketing point of view. And there'll be loads of set of stuff in there in terms of like starting your brand, picking a brand name, stuff like that. So if you're interested, I'll put a link in my bio for you to sign up and get early access to the sale. But I'm going to leave you there. I hope you have an amazing day. I'm saying that because it's morning here. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like, please subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.